Hi guys, it's Emma AITA, your favorite AI slop tuber. Before we jump into today's video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks so much for your support. Now, let's get right into the video. AITA for refusing to include my stepdaughter in my daughter's graduation celebration. I, 44 male, am a divorced father with one biological daughter, Emily, 18 female, who just graduated high school with honors. She's been accepted into a competitive pre-med program, and our whole family is incredibly proud of her. Emily has worked hard for years, late night studying, volunteering, taking extra AP classes, all without ever asking for much. She's quiet, focused, and deeply empathetic. Her mother, my ex-wife, and I divorced when she was 10, and since then, we've had shared custody. Despite the usual bumps, we've co-parented well. 3 years ago, I remarried a woman named Karen, 41 female, who has a daughter, Sophie, 17 female, from a previous marriage. Now, Sophie is very different from Emily. Where Emily is academic and reserved, Sophie is outgoing, rebellious, and, to put it bluntly, not particularly interested in school. She's had behavioral issues, skipping classes, talking back to teachers, experimenting with drugs, and it's been a rocky ride. Karen and I have tried therapy, structure, incentives, consequences, but Sophie walks her own path. I don't blame her entirely. Her father is largely absent, and I know she's dealing with a lot of emotional fallout. I've tried to be there for her, and while we're not particularly close, we've built a kind of polite coexistence over the last few years. A few months ago, as Emily's graduation approached, I started planning a private celebration. Nothing outrageous, just a backyard party with close family and a few of her friends, catered food, decorations, and a heartfelt speech I'd been working on for weeks. I wanted this moment to be hers, a tribute to the quiet strength she's shown all her life and the bright future she's carved out for herself. She's had to share so much, her home, her time with me, her routines, and this felt like something that could be just for her. When I told Emily about the party, her eyes lit up. She asked hesitantly if it would just be for her or if she'd be expected to share the attention. Without thinking twice, I told her it would be hers alone. That's where everything started to unravel. The moment Karen found out the party would be exclusively for Emily, she was visibly upset. Not furious, but wounded. The kind of quiet, simmering disappointment that fills a room. She asked me cautiously at first, "Are you sure it's a good idea to leave Sophie out?" "Don't you think she'll feel excluded?" I reminded her gently that this wasn't about exclusion, it was about honoring Emily for her specific achievement. Sophie, I said, wasn't graduating. She wasn't even close. In fact, she was still catching up after failing 2 classes the year before. I wasn't doing this to hurt anyone. I just didn't see why we should dilute Emily's moment to spare feelings that didn't directly relate to the occasion. But Karen saw it differently. She said that Sophie had been feeling like a second-class member of the family lately, that seeing Emily celebrated while she stood in the background might deepen that divide. I asked her plainly, "Do you think Emily should share her graduation party with someone who didn't graduate?" Karen paused. She said no, not a shared party, just an acknowledgement. Maybe a cake with both names, maybe a few words about how proud we were of both girls. "It wouldn't kill you," she said. "It wouldn't kill Emily either." That night, I brought it up to Emily. I didn't tell her Karen's exact words, but I gently asked if she'd be open to including Sophie in some small way, even just mentioning her during the toast. The answer was an immediate, firm no. Emily was polite, but she was clearly upset. She said she had spent the last 3 years fading into the background in her own home, sharing everything, adjusting to new schedules, pretending not to notice when Sophie skipped family dinners or left her room a mess, or shouted at Karen in the hallway. She said she didn't hate Sophie, but she was tired of always being asked to make room. This party was the first thing in a long time that was just for her. "Please," she said, "just let me have this one thing." And honestly, she was right. My heart broke a little hearing her say it. She wasn't being dramatic, just exhausted from 3 years of accommodating someone else's chaos. And now she was asking me not to bring that chaos into the one event she had dreamed of and worked toward. That sealed it for me. So I told Karen, the party would remain a graduation celebration for Emily alone. Sophie was, of course, invited as family, but she wouldn't be mentioned in the speech. There wouldn't be a joint cake, no dual banners or photos. Emily deserved her moment, her solo spotlight, and I wasn't going to take that away from her. Karen didn't speak to me for a day and a half. When she finally did, she said she understood my reasoning but still thought I was making a mistake. She said I was feeding a dynamic in the house that would hurt Sophie long-term, that I was reinforcing the idea that she was an outsider in her own family. I pushed back. She is part of this family, but this party isn't about family. It's about celebrating a graduate. Then came the fallout. The week leading up to the party was awkward, to say the least. Sophie became noticeably colder toward me and Emily. She'd barely make eye contact when passing us in the hallway, and at one point I overheard her in the kitchen telling Karen, "Why should I even go? It's not like anyone wants me there." Karen didn't argue, just told her softly, "You should still be there, for your own sake." The atmosphere in the house was tense, like a storm cloud following us around. Emily stayed quiet but on edge, constantly worried that the drama would somehow taint her day. I reassured her as best I could. I even booked a second catering vendor to make sure there were extra options Sophie liked, her favorite sliders, cupcakes, and a mocktail station just to help her feel included, even subtly. I didn't tell Emily because I didn't want her to feel like her moment was being softened, but I hoped it would help. The day of the party arrived. Guests began arriving by early afternoon. My parents, Emily's grandparents on her mother's side, a few of her close friends, and even some of her teachers. There was music, decorations, framed photos of Emily through the years, and a big banner across the backyard fence that read, "Congratulations, Emily." The sun was shining, the food smelled great, and for a while, everything felt perfect. Then Karen and Sophie showed up, late, and not by accident. Sophie wore all black, while the rest of us were dressed semi-formally, and she hung back in the corner, arms folded, barely talking to anyone. Karen made the rounds politely, but her smile never quite reached her eyes. When it came time for the toast, I stood in front of everyone with a glass in my hand and a small speech prepared. I talked about Emily's work ethic, her quiet kindness, the obstacles she'd overcome after the divorce, and how proud I was to be her father. Her eyes watered, mine almost did too, and the applause afterward was genuine and warm. And then I noticed Karen staring at me with this tight-lipped expression, and Sophie walked away before the speech was even over. Later, after the party died down and most guests had gone home, Karen cornered me in the kitchen. She said that while the party went fine, she felt I'd been needlessly cruel. That I had sent a message to everyone, including Sophie, that she wasn't worth acknowledging. I reminded her, again, that Sophie wasn't graduating, that Emily's party wasn't about Sophie, that I had tried, behind the scenes, to include her in quiet ways, and she had chosen to wall herself off. Karen didn't see it that way. She said, "You could have said one sentence, just one. Something like, 'We're proud of all our kids.' But you didn't. You erased her from the picture, Ryan." She then told me that Sophie had gone straight to her room in tears and said she wanted to move back in with her grandmother. That night, Emily came to me and said, "Dad, thank you. I know it got weird, but this really meant everything to me." And I just sat there completely split. One daughter felt seen, the other felt alienated, and I didn't know if I had made the right choice, or just the least painful one for Emily. In the weeks following the party, the household dynamic took a steep dive. Sophie actually did move in with her grandmother temporarily. She packed a few bags and left with barely a word, not even a goodbye to me. Karen didn't stop her. In fact, she seemed resigned to it, though she clearly blamed me. We didn't fight outright, but a sort of coldness took root in our marriage. She started sleeping in later, coming home later, barely joining me for meals. We coexisted, but barely. Emily noticed, of course, and felt guilty even though none of it was her fault. She started spending more time at her mom's house, perhaps trying to give us space, or maybe escaping the tension. Karen and I tried to talk about it a few times. I said I didn't regret keeping the party focused on Emily, that I still believed every kid deserves a moment that doesn't have to be shared. Karen countered that families are supposed to make room for one another even if the timing isn't perfect. I asked her, "So what would you have done?" "Really?" She didn't answer directly. She just said, "You made her feel small. Like she didn't matter. That's what she'll remember." Eventually, Sophie returned home. A little quieter, a little more withdrawn. She didn't bring up the party, but the energy was different. She treated me more like a step-landlord than a stepfather. Polite, distant, perfunctory. It hurt more than I expected. I'd tried so hard to be a steady presence in her life, but I think I became collateral damage in a fight between expectation and disappointment. I hadn't dishonored her, but I hadn't protected her feelings either. Still, Emily flourished. She went off to college, wrote me long emails about her classes and labs, and even called me just to say hi, something she never used to do. That meant everything to me. I thought about the moment she asked me, so vulnerably, if she could have one day that was hers. I thought about how many times she'd bent over backwards to accommodate everyone around her, and how little she ever asked for in return. I think I would make the same choice again, but the weight of it never fully left me. Karen and I eventually went to counseling, and to her credit, she acknowledged that she'd let her own guilt about Sophie's struggles cloud her judgment. She admitted that, in some ways, she had hoped I would take on the emotional burden of balancing both girls when she felt overwhelmed. And I admitted I had sometimes distanced myself from Sophie out of frustration and confusion, unsure how to connect with a teenager so different from me and my daughter. Reddit, I know this post paints a complicated picture. I didn't throw Sophie out. I didn't insult her. I just refused to water down a celebration that was never meant to be about her. I believed, and still believe, that recognizing one child's achievements doesn't mean belittling another. But in choosing to honor one daughter's moment, I may have bruised the other's spirit. So I ask, AITA for keeping my daughter's graduation celebration exclusive, knowing it might alienate my stepdaughter?